I don't know what I'm gonna draw today yet. I might just doodle or study anatomy or something. Not sure. Always have the option of doing the other week 26 stuff. Might do that. I feel like that would take me forever to learn the animated emotes. I don't think it's gonna be hard for me to learn it, but it will still be time consuming. Yeah, or I can answer questions about painting and stuff. Kind of didn't really plan much. I just knew I wanted to draw a little bit. Yeah, you guys want me to draw like studies or sketch studies? Or just doodles? Or what are the other options? You can do the weekly studies, or I was thinking about downloading Rust and try to see if I can try to paint on Rust. I don't know though. That means I have to actually get the game. I don't have Rust, so. I think. Right now it is 4 p.m. I'm starting kind of late actually. 4 p.m. already. Probably won't draw for a very long time today, but we'll see. Maybe I'll draw a little bit and then I'll draw again on the Discord server. Let's see. I kind of want to do the metal one, the metal study. Tutorial. Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that Discord is as much as populated as it is now. Eye tutorial. I mean, eyes are just another shape, so see. I didn't really study eyes that much. I just kind of drew them like I would draw any other thing. So 0, 8, 13. Let's look at 0, 8, 13. This is sorted wrong. So this one. So this is like one of the more detailed eyes I've done. Let me see if the resolution is correct. Yeah, so this is the full resolution. And I don't have much to say about like how to draw eyes, except for making sure that your form is good. But there's not there's not like a really complicated concept or anything. And there's not a lot of different eye shapes either. Like you can most of eye shape is just broken down into two curves. So the top and bottom curve. You can think about like the eye profile from the side as well, but that's like usually people only care about whether or not it's in or out. And okay, let me prove my point. So yeah, I mean you can get all into the details of things, but don't dwell on the colors so much. Doesn't matter that much, but let's just use a whatever brush. So if I wanted to draw an eye, oops. I guess it's easier for me to make a stream if there are questions. I don't really mind questions unless they're like unrelated to art, but let's see. So eye tutorial for now, but I just paint, so I'm gonna go ahead and paint. I use layers sometimes, but not that much. So I don't like just drawing the eye. Like it feels kind of weird to do that. So I'll draw a lot of the rest of things. So let's do like a face. Let's do the whole face and then other parts. So like a lot of people draw shapes separately. And yeah, I guess you can do that. It's more common if you're sketching or doing lines. But I find the way to do that, like the way you would draw separate features separately is it's like a very not fun way to draw, so I don't do it. But like I care more about the overall shape. Yeah, I guess I can turn this into a statue, but so some people draw like the eyes and then they draw the rest of the face, which is fine, I guess, but I like to position the head a little bit or something else and then position the head. So now I have like an idea of orientation, and then I can say, yeah, the eyes are maybe right here. I never just draw the eyes, so I like blocking in like the rough features. So if I do this, if I just roughen the features at an even speed, so I don't over render or even over sketch something before everything else. So let's do the eyebrow. I can kind of look like, or I can kind of see what the person is supposed to look like. Like I can kind of tell like a impression of the character or person that I'm drawing. Yeah, I know there's programs for it, but I don't want to download extra stuff. I name everything with the dates anyway, so it's not common for me to need to open Photoshop files again, so I won't do that. So at this stage, I might draw the eyes in. But usually still at this stage I don't care about the details of the eyes. It's not that important. In fact, recently I did some studies where the eye is, I wouldn't say out of focus, but not rendered on purpose. And it's perfectly fine. So I care about the big shapes. An eye is not a big shape. It's like a medium-sized feature. But the overall shape of the face is a bigger form or shape. So getting the shape of the face and the position of each feature is way more important than, you know, what shape the eye is, because you can always change that. So like right now I don't like the profile of the chin. Yeah, like overall it's where I like it, but it does define personality a little bit, or at least I don't want to say personality, but the likeness is pretty easily affected by shape of the face. No, I almost never paint in just grayscale first. If I intend to make it a color painting, I just start with color. Faster. Why would I start with color and then spend the time to adjust it to, or why would I start with black and white and then adjust it to color later if I know I want color? Okay, so I guess I draw eyes pretty late. Because I push the detail levels kind of evenly across the drawing, so that at any given time if I stop, it doesn't feel like I just worked a lot on one side of the picture and then disregarded like a bunch of other parts. Where if you were to do line arts and stuff, or you draw from top to bottom, or you draw the eyes and you draw everything else, you might over render the eyes and then you don't know how to draw the lips or nose, so you leave that kind of empty, or you don't put definition on the neck, but you just have like a super detailed eye. So for example, at this stage some people might be inclined to do this, right? You just let me get the eyelashes in, and then we'll do like the pupil. Because I know where all my stuff are. I mean, drawing the second eye isn't really an issue. I can just draw it in. So that side's gonna be kind of covered with hair, so I don't care about it that much. I still want to know if I'm in perspective, so I'll draw out like a rough shape and have the outline of the eyebrow. So the perspective looks okay, right? And you can tell the face is laid out fairly okay. Like the position of all the features are okay, but the shading isn't done at all. I don't play that many games, but I do sometimes. I can turn it into a gaming stream later, maybe, but right now I'll focus on this. So you, like, a lot of people would think like eyes are the focal point of a painting, right? It's a pretty common focal point. So I'm sure you've heard people say like you should put more detail. Like even if you're new to painting or drawing, you should put more details in the focal point usually, because it draws the eye. So you might think, oh yeah, it's justifiable for me to. I'm already here. I know that the eyes look kind of good, so it would make it look a lot better if I just put more detail in it, right? Like we'll have. Let's assume we do everything correctly. So we'll have the, the reflective patch, and then the iris. We'll have the drop shadow. So this top line is the drop shadow of the eyelashes, and then the bottom would be like it's like a convex reflection of the bottom part of the eyelid, so it's darker here, and then this would be brighter, and then maybe you'll add in more detail like the muscle pattern of the iris, and then you make like a bunch of different colors. It's really cool. Clear out this a little bit, like stuff like this. Like you do something like this and you just keep detailing the eyes, but now there are shapes in the eye that are way too small for this painting, so now everything else looks kind of blurry. So here's the original one where there's a little bit of uniformity in shape languages, but if you just drop in like focus on rendering the focal points or whatever you're comfortable with rendering first, then it's easy to just throw it off. Yeah, sure, your eyes will go here because there's nowhere else to go, but also your painting just looks like you took a bunch of images or different drawings and you pasted into one. You pick like really high res eyes, and then the rest is, yeah, kind of just blurry. And you don't want that. That's why I don't know how to do like an eye tutorial without going into fundamentals. Because essentially eye is just like a ball with like a thick surface that's covering over it, so the eyelids. And how the eyelids lay and how it's affected based on how much it's open or what angle is that's a whole fundamental tutorial. There's not really like a just draw the eyelids in this shape, or like, oh, a lot of like Reels tutorials or YouTube Shorts tutorial would tell you things like this. I was like, oh, the eye is just, you know, the tear gland, and then the other side, I forgot what it's called, where the top and bottom eyelids meet. They would just say something like, oh, it's just one curve here, right? And if you want more personality, you just move this up and down. By the way, I'm saying this ironically. So if you just move it up and down, so if you have like a really angry person, right? Or like let me do a different one. So let's look at these eyes. So typically the tutorial would say something like, oh, like these eyes look kind of neutral, so this is higher than where the tear duct would be, and if you were to make this person more I don't know, fierce or a stronger personality, you might do something like you just raise the angle on this, right? Like now it has a sharper glance, and then you lower the eyebrow, so it looks like the eyes is more open, and now it's like I wouldn't say angry, but that's like more of a gaze, more intense gaze. See, this shit doesn't really matter. Like, yeah, the characteristics are there, but if you're looking at studying some photograph and you want to break down these things, it's very easy. It's like, yeah, you just move this point, up and down, right? And then you get different eye shapes. So you can also break it down to, oh, what if I want you'd be like, oh, if you want it to be sad, just make it curve downwards, and then like just make the eyes curve downwards, and then they're sad. Very, very simple. Maybe some blushes on the eyes, whatever. But no, I don't want to criticize other people's art, but like I can do critiques, but that's different from just, you know, shitting on other people's art. They can do whatever they want, and I have my own approach to how I want to do art, because I know where I approximately want to go. My stuff is going to be pretty based on fundamentals, and yeah, even feedbacks, because not everybody wants to draw like me. Sure, I have fundamentals, but not everybody wants to learn fundamentals. Are you saying my fingers look frail? They're not that frail. Okay, so anyway. Yeah, you can listen to these tutorials all you want. Like, you just look up online anime or just eye tutorial in general. They'll tell you these very superficial tips. They're like tips and tricks. Like, oh, if you wanna draw a cute girl, right? You just Uh, just just make the eyes pop. Just that's what they tell you. Just make it pop with contrast and very sharp shapes, and then you might have like very intricate shapes. It's like how to draw anime eyes. Yeah, you just put whatever inside. You know, I put the rock inside personally, but to each their own. Let me show you. Let me see if I can find it. I keep most of my files, but this is like 2 years ago. I don't like how I draw 2 years ago, so you're gonna have to you'll have to bear with me there. But where is it? So I'll actually do like a eye tutorial, but it probably won't be what you guys expect. I do like a how I would approach eyes, but it's been done before already because classically trained artists, it just does this method. They just treat it like it's another object. So this is also why I don't like making tutorials, because there are tutorials out there already that covers the exact same things. It's like, why do I want to waste bandwidth and make more stuff that's gonna say the same things, maybe in a different order of words? I swear, where the hell is it? I have it. Just, I don't know where it is. So, can I really not find it? Yeah, but I guess for this stream, feel free to ask whatever. I'll try to answer it. I don't know if I will do a full study. I don't. I might do a study later on the Discord VC or something. But I'm so mad I can't find it. I think there's too many black and white drawings from before. So even if I were to remember what it looks like, there's too many that look the same. Like, it has the same feel to it. Okay, so I found one of them. Oh, this is actually one of them. But it doesn't specify, or I didn't detail anything, like the eyes or something. But yeah, I can't really find it, but you guys can see a little bit. There's the rock, over here. And the whole picture is just the rock. So let me show you guys the brush. That's the brush. So yeah. No, like literally the rock. So wait a second. Oh, JY canvas. Or like painterly. You do like painterly stuff as well. That's cool. But that means you're picking a hard path to follow. But yeah, it's harder to... I find that it's harder to get nice looking results early with painter type stuff. But it's easy to... Like, the skill ceiling is really high. Or if there is even one, so... The brush that's the hardest to paint with, and I don't recommend, is the Bad Apple and Pedro brush. I don't recommend it. It's terrible. Nothing comes close. Okay, so anyway. I mean, you can just look up online resources for like academic approach to painting. I don't really have any resources for that either. I just look at other people paint and kind of guess how they approach it. So I don't know if my main brush counts as a gimmick brush. So the one I'm using right now, this one, if you zoom in, it's the whatever brush. I'm sure most of you know what it is. It's that brush. And that's what I... sometimes I just use that brush for the entire painting. Like, I'll use it for sketching, I'll use it for hair, skin, metal, it doesn't matter, so... If it can make a clear mark and it has some pressure sensitivity, then it's fine. So anyway, yeah, how to draw cute anime girl eyes, right? This just make it pop. Just put some color in this and you'll be good. Yeah, it's pretty shitty advice. So the way I would approach eyes, and then you can you can like branch off from there is look at how eyes work. So let's look at these first. So you can think of it as a feel like a broken record because I've seen tutorials like this. So just think of it like a ball. You can have cross contours for the ball. So this, and then the iris is just it's almost like a circle on the ball, but it does have a little bit of convex on them. So this is the iris, and then the center of the iris, the pupil, is just a hole into the eyeball. Like there's muscles contracting. And then if you think about it, the eyelid is just wrapping, like it's wrapping skin around. So you have two fixed points, kind of fixed points where the eyelids connect. So it's the other side and then the tear duct. So if you just draw a curve that wraps around the eyeball, then yeah, you can kind of get the shape of the eye in any direction. So this looks like a pretty shitty eye, but it would actually work, and I can prove it. So I'm gonna leave this eye like this, and I know which direction it is. It's kind of there. Make the iris bigger. Okay. You might think this shape is kind of garbage, but if you are able to draw something like this, drawing the second eye is just a perspective issue. Here. So I don't like drawing like this because then you're really locked in on perspective, which means your second eye has to be very accurate in perspective as well. Yeah, well, everything else, because you're basing everything else off that one eye. This is like a very simplified eyes. So I drew with a pretty big brush, but oh, consistency. Yeah, I can get to that. Yeah, I hate this style, this way of drawing, not style, but the procedure. It requires much more adjustments. So I think this eye is actually slanting down this way and up this way a little bit more, and I have to slant everything else to match it. Let's see. Yeah, probably. So yeah, not an ideal way of drawing, just going with the eye first, especially if you're going to detail the eye, but it's doable. No, actually, perfect angle looks better than non-perfect angles. But if you draw with the thinner the line and the sharper the features and the shapes, the more accurate you need to be on the perspective because there's less room for error. And if you're trying to go for perfect perspective and you're drawing everything with like perfectly clean lines, there's no room for error. So if you're off even a little bit, you can tell it's awkward. Like right here, you can tell it's awkward, but it'll take a while to kind of iron out the issues. Interesting. Let's see. You can flip the image, yeah, but sometimes even flipping the image can't help with that. Let's see. What was it? Style consistency. I don't know what you mean by whenever you draw, you get a different style. And, oh, hi. So let me get back to the version one. So this is where I was for the eye tutorial thing, but how I approach eyes would be yeah, that could be for a lot of reasons. It depends on like how you draw and what makes you think it looks different. Do you guys still want me to continue with the eye stuff? Like I can show how I detail an eye, or like the important part. So often the important parts or the focal point of the eye is like the eyelash, the double eyelid, the eyeshadows, sometimes the bottom lashes, and then obviously the pupil. So we can use that as information to where we want to put the highest level of contrast first. So even if I do stuff like just very basic things like this, you can kind of tell that the eye has a lot more detail now, even though it was like 4 strokes. So if you're placing the details correctly and your shapes are in like laid in correctly in perspective and everything, then it's easy to just add detail. So let's see. So if I want focal point to the eye, I can do that with variations of shape, even if there's not a lot of details in it, and I can choose which shape to put in, because if you just put in a bunch of shapes, even if they're sharp, you start to lose the impact of the amount of detail you can put. So you want to prioritize what you put in there. Clean up your shape a little bit. Let's drop the other side as well. So I have this side covered by hair, but I'll still hint the shape of the eye a little bit. So you get some consistency. Okay. So that's like pretty quickly way more detail than before, and I didn't really put that much shape in. Okay. Ooh, that's a little. Okay, that's a little better. So yeah, not a whole lot of detail required for the eye, but the problem is like, or rather, the thing that I look for is like if my eyes are in good perspective relative to the face, to other features, to each other. Because if it doesn't, then you run into the same issue of like, oh, I can't draw my second eye. So if you draw both eye at the same time, you don't run into that issue. Yes, well, you always increase complexity at later process. So at this point, because the eye is using a lot more of the, I guess, the small shape budget of the painting, I would actually move on to other parts to kind of even it out. Because right now it's almost going to be out of balance. Like, you can still do this and be like, yeah, this is a painterly sketch, right? You can still, maybe I'll have to. Yeah, I can still pitch this as like a. How do I put this? Has enough uniformity. Like, it looks like one picture. It's not like I just picked something to render really hard and then forget about the rest of the painting and ran out of time or ran out of patience. So I mean, I don't like this shape here right now, but it'll have to do. Yeah, so let me try to get to the, like, I have to drop some rendering in, or like some shape clarity, form shape clarity in, before I can add more to it. So, I mean, I can just do it in lines, I guess. So At this point, a lot of the major shapes and major forms are laid out. Uh, I don't think I would render too much at this point yet. Like right now, the problem is more the overall shape being inaccurate or like not exactly where I want it to be. So I might fix like, oh, I don't like how the chin looks, or like I don't like how the the lips look, or uh, the balance in the values. So I want darker values in certain areas. So I can test the focus of the painting instead of worrying about the details. Like I would personally think it's a very bad idea to start worrying about details at this stage, just because like it looks like a picture now. I was still worried more about the form first. Something like that. Kiara, when another feedback tutorial video. So I have like a crap ton of feedback images that's on the Discord that I never got to now that you mentioned it. And tutorials, I don't know what kind of tutorial. I think I said it before, like there's so much tutorials out on the YouTube space now that I feel like if I were to make more tutorials, it would just be me repeating the same thing over and over. And at that point, you can just look up tutorials on YouTube or Reels that has basis and fundamentals. So look for, I guess, painter or traditionally trained artists. Don't, I would say, avoid like how to draw anime or how to draw comic. For Control Z, Solario bot. For Control Z, I try not to Control Z too much. Hold on. Because I can just paint over whatever I have. It's the same as like it's the same as erasing. So I rather erase manually or paint over with a different color than use Control Z to undo whatever I did. And I don't. It's not like I trained for it. It's just a habit at this point. East Asian. I am Chinese. How to draw realistically, then, as opposed to what? Ooh, 20s. I would say it's. What do you mean by when? Like, edge and soft, like lost edge consistent, like considerations should be pretty early in the observation stage. So it's like very early in the fundamental process because they tie to shapes and sometimes values. Uh, lighting. Lighting is just like a projection of how light hits objects, and if you want to learn that, you need to learn perspective if you want to make your own objects. Otherwise, you can just do references. But if you want to change anything about the reference, then you will have to learn perspectives. So I can show an example later in a bit, but let me drive this point home. So at this point, the rendering is kind of even. The eye still has a bit more detail because the shapes are so small, but I could probably push it a little bit without looking too weird. So let's push the detail levels a little bit. So you can't just draw the eye really clean. You have to draw everything around the eye really in kind of details too, or else it will look out of place. Like the surrounding areas can't just be just be whack, or else it will look out of place, and you don't want that. Same thing with eyebrows. I like to draw the individual hairs in the eyebrows a little bit, so you can see kind of like a texture. You learn perspective. Perspective rules are very clearly defined. So if you just look up perspective studies or perspective guides and how to learn like three-dimensional geometry, I guess, it's not too hard to get to the right answer. There's a lot of resources for that. I can't cover perspective all in one go because it would take me a while to explain everything. So yeah, not much of a specific tutorial for eyes, but this is how I approach details, including eyes. Eyes just happens to be one of the more detailed areas. So at first glance, you would think this sketch is pretty detailed, but there's really not that many shapes in here. Like, it's very little. Perspective videos. Oh man. I don't want to cover perspective videos because it's been covered in so many different things, but I think the problem people would have with it is they try to, like, when people try to learn perspective without getting into the technical aspects, there's not too many tricks in perspective. I can show you. So there's really only one rule in perspective, if you boil it down to that, is things that are closer are bigger and things that are further are smaller. If you really think about it, if you can apply that with 100% consistency, you can do any perspective you want. I haven't heard this take before, but I'm pretty much 100% certain that it's true. So if I draw a box, I mean, there's obvious things like obviously parallel things are parallel by definition, but that's not really a, that's not an, like it's an observation, but it's like the identity principle in algebra, right? C equals C, and obviously like A equals B, B equals C, and C equals A by it's not called transpose. So let's do like a box, right? So first thing first, we look at a square. So we know like congruency or like angle. So these are the parallel sets, and these are 90 degrees. So that's a square. And if we extend that to a box, so this. So now we know that these are congruent, not congruent, but parallel. These and then these. So these are the set of parallel lines. 3 sets for each. Okay. So to draw this in perspective, we just have to follow those ideas. So parallel things should be parallel. If things are further away, they are smaller. So this applies to objects as well as gaps. So if we have this, and we say things that are further are smaller, so the distance between 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's put 1 and 3. So 1 and 3 will be further from us, and 2 and 4 will be closer to us. So we have 2 and 4. So those are the points. And then we have 1 and 2. Because it's further, it's going to be smaller. So 1 and 3. And these are connecting. So you can call that like these two have a vanishing point. That's not very useful in most drawing cases, but yeah, sure, let's call it vanishing point. So parallel lines share vanishing points. That's just an observation. It's not really a, like, it's an observation, but it's not like a rule that nature follows, because vanishing point isn't real. So it just means that when it gets further and further, it gets smaller. So the gap between the parallel lines gets smaller and smaller until it's so small you can't see it. So let's go and draw a box from this. So this is surface 1, and we know that this edge is, so the red edge is closer than the blue edge. So that's why the blue edge is smaller than the red one, because it's closer. See how easy that is? But we want to draw the entire box, so we'll draw the other 2 sets of parallel lines. So let's say right here, because this red edge is closer, the other edge right here will be further. So now this edge is let me label this. So this is 2, 4, 1, 2, oops, 2, 3, 4. Let's do 5, 6 in the back, and then 7, 8. So this is 7 and 8. So line 7, 8 is looks smaller than line 2 and 4, or line 2, 4, because it's further away from the viewer. So this is closer. No, I never done draw. I mean, I've done draw box like one lesson, but I don't really like it because it's obvious the rules of perspective, and if you just follow, you don't need to do draw box. You can draw anything else. So anyway, we can just go with what we know to be true. So, like I said, further things are smaller, so that's always going to be true. So we can just keep pushing, but parallel things are also going to be parallel. The vanishing point, it works. Let me show you what I mean by you only need that one rule. You don't need the vanishing point. You don't need the even the idea of parallelism can be simplified to when it goes further, it's smaller. So let me look at it this way. Let's say I draw this line like this, and you'll say, yeah, maybe you can tell it's wrong by a little bit. But the reason why it's wrong is because it's not, how do I put this? It's not following that one rule where it's like further things get smaller, because it's the same rule as the vanishing line. So, or vanishing point. So if we draw out this line, so we know these four are parallel. So these four are parallel. So here's the problem. They don't line up with the vanishing point, but if we don't even think about the vanishing point issue, is let's see if I can demonstrate this effectively. We can think of there to be, like, there's this line, but this line is the same line because they're parallel to each other. But as we move further and further, it gets smaller and smaller. But the same thing could be said here, this red line. So there's this red line, but we can extend that to be smaller and smaller, right? But then eventually we get to the point where, yeah, now we're here, it's crossing, but it's like the other line hasn't crossed yet. So if we keep going a little bit until we meet the other vanishing point, it becomes bigger and bigger. So now we're breaking that further equals smaller rule. So we, by deduction, we know that one of these lines must be wrong. Does that make sense? I mean, it's a simple rule, but it's hard to stay consistent with it. So if we were to fix this, we can do the rule where we align this here. And now all three lines would be parallel to each other. So let's see. It's about right there. And this is about right here. If you apply the same logic, so if you draw it like this, you know it's wrong because this line is supposed to be shorter than this line because it's further. Let's make it shorter. Maybe right here. So this line is wrong. Yeah, you can kind of just deduce what has to be correct. And then you can get the perspective. Even by eyes, you can lock it down pretty accurately. So that's this box is pretty in perspective. There's like some minor issues, but I won't go and check it. So the reason why I hate like trying to do vanishing point studies is because when you have another box, then you need a different set of vanishing point. Let's say, what if I have, like, we have this box, and let's say we draw the horizon. Like, here's the horizon for the box, and this box is sitting on this surface. So what if I want to draw another box that's here, and I want to orient it differently? So let's say it does this. This box has different sets of vanishing points. So the vanishing point would be maybe around here. So this is one, and then there's two vanishing points, maybe the other one's over there. And then this box. So this is box 1, and then this is box 2. Box 1 would have a vanishing point like right around here, and somewhere over there, because these two are converging over there. But they don't share the same vanishing point. They share the same horizons, but now it's meaningless to lock yourself to vanishing points. And that's why this is... it's useful to know how to do this, but once you can draw a box in perfect perspective, you don't really need to do anything more, because you can subdivide the box. I'm sure that's in Draw a Box too, but I wouldn't suggest studying this too intensively, because one, it's boring for most people, but two, let's say there's almost no reason to draw it super accurately. So if I wanted a shape inside this box, did I draw the horizon through the box? That would be terrible. Yeah, fuck. Okay. Oh god. Where did I put it? Okay. So once you can do this like pretty reliably, and I'm not going to tell you how to learn this, but you should be able to do different shapes inside this box. So the box will help you orientate things. So let's say I have a cross section of a circle. I don't want to draw too big of a circle, then I think it's less and less accurate. And let's say I draw this shape. Like that. So I want to draw like a tube that's oriented by the box. I can predict where it touches the box. Just this is just a random shape. If I were to draw it out, I could say this face is kind of attached to one of the face of the box, and then it retains like an even thickness. This touches the bottom, and then we go back to the top of the box again. It touches the top. I'm not going to draw that part because it's being covered, but I can go extend this over. So I'm extending the space on the vanishing point, so it's like parallel to the box. Yeah, so you can use the box to do random stuff, or use it as a guide to do random things, but I think most people use the box guide incorrectly, because people don't... There's not enough rigor in making sure that the perspective is correct. So anyway, yeah, so if you can draw a box, technically you can draw this weird organic shape, and you can put head in a box, oriented, whatever, however you want. And but once you can do that, you can say, oh, I want to attach different shapes to it. Then, following, if you get really used to drawing stuff in perspective, you'll think about things like in terms of boxes and cylinders. So if you can put things in boxes and cylinders, you can also guess the cross section. So if I say I want the intersection between one cylinder and the other, I can kind of guess how the shape of the intersection would be. So this is facing us a little bit, right? It's like in a really weird position. And it'll come out the other side facing away from us. You get this weird organic shape. But you can kind of predict these things just based on perspective and geometry. We can, let's see, we can just cross-section different shapes. It's pretty fun. That's like, if I have to study perspective, that's how I do it. So cross-section maybe like a cone. That's like a cone. And I'll think about how the cone would interact with the tube if they were to cross. So yeah, you don't want me to do a tutorial on perspectives, because I can do this for hours, and it'll be boring, and a lot of it just comes down to memorizing and keeping the rules consistent. You can do this all day. Like, I can do, for example, like a rotated pipe that's also revolving, or not revolving, but how do you say that word? It's like rolling or wrapped around another thing. So maybe like this, and then it's like fit it into the original pipe. And we can have that same fitting rotated again, and then it'll fit on the other side of this. Like, it'll show the rotation. I could just keep drawing like this. Like, that's what Kim Jong-gi does. He's comfortable with perspective, so he can just keep adding to the shape. And sometimes he doesn't, like, he just thinks about the final shape, or like the final complexity. So he leaves empty spots to fill in with what he knows he wants, or where he knows that he wants complex geometry. So it's just Kim Jong-gi is like, he has a very big mental library of what objects look like, but if you like studied what objects look like and have a pretty good memory and you have good perspective consistency, you can draw whatever you want. Yeah, the fact that he does it on ink is pretty wild. So yeah, so I'll draw perspective here because I mean, this could go on forever, but I can, if there's any other questions, I can do that. But otherwise, I probably won't stay on the stream for too long because I don't have a study planned. But yeah, once you can draw the box, you can force yourself to figure things out because you can draw smaller and smaller boxes and perspectives, and if you can draw a box, you can probably draw a cylinder. You can make it do weird things. And oh, so one thing about this, how do you do lighting? So lighting is kind of like this. I know this is under surface, but do like a step down, so this would still be exposed above surface. You guys don't know what I'm talking about, it's okay. But anyway, the lighting consistency or shading consistency is like this. If I have this object, you know how I'm doing intersections here? If I know I have light source over here, let's say I have light source over here and it's shining in almost sideways or from the back, then I can tell which surfaces that it'll hit. So if I were to shade this object, I would say, you know, this face. Oops, this face is not going to be hit for sure. But how bright it is, we can discuss it later. But this here, this underside won't be hit. We won't consider bounce light yet, so it's just shade hard shadows. And then all this won't be hit. Maybe up to here. And then we'll have a cast shadow on this tube right here. So this won't be hit. And then the bottom one actually has a cast shadow from the main tube itself. So it looks something like this. It will have a curve. Just geometrically, I know it'll have a curve. And then we'll have this cast a shadow. The cast will come from the tangent between on the terminator. Don't worry about it if you have no idea what I'm saying, but so the shape of this shadow would approximately be like that. Approximately. Not worry about the details here, but okay. So this cone is partially blocked by, it will actually receive cast shadow from the tiny tube up there, and then this face would be darker than this face actually, but let's not worry about that either. How to shade a cone, and then shade the main tube over here. And it will shade the smaller tubes first, and before worry about the cast shadows. And then this one actually gets almost completely covered. We won't like worry about the cast shadow on the floor yet, but let's do a cast on the main tube from the tiny one. Okay, like this. I think this would be covered by the first tube. And then we might see a little bit here. Because this part needs to be consistent with this part. So if you think about it, because it's coming up and it's going straight, it will connect. So we'll have to put that in. And then let's make this straighter. Okay. So that's about right. This small tube, I think, will cast a little bit of shadow on the cone itself. And then I think, yeah, that's about right. And then the cast shadow from the tube to everything else. So let's do the floor. So the floor shadow, you kind of have to project the way the shadow is gonna fall onto a plane. So the cone face is darker because it's facing down, so it's a little bit at a further angle from the incident light. So this would be like that. And then I created a step here so that this would actually reach the floor, but so the step itself will have shadow like about here. And then this will have shadow, I think. Extends. I don't really, like, I don't have a clear vision of what I want the floor structure to look like, but let's do the cast shadow here, and then the cast shadow for the cone. So we can trace this, like, it's like kind of like ray tracing. You could just trace this. So this is the light angle, right? And then we can predict where that cone is going to fall in terms of the shadow. Maybe, yeah, like that. It goes up a little bit, but because the floor is foreshortened, it will look shorter on the floor itself. And then you also have this that's probably going to fall on top. I mean, I can keep mapping this out, but this curves this way, right? Yeah, this way. So because I know it's covering this, I think this tube is actually going to cast a shadow on top of the cone itself. So I'm going to have to cover all this. Let's do a normal like this. So probably something like that. I don't know. And then slightly darker here. And then you'll have like light attenuation. You can keep going with the details, like the logic. And then you have like bounce light here. And then you have like a softer edge conversion here. Maybe bounce light here too. Yeah, the back of cone. Actually, this will have light because it's bouncing up. So something like this from the floor. I mean, I'm not being very careful right now, and we can use a reference for this. And then reflected light from this side if there's stuff over there. This is definitely dark. Yeah. Something like that. No, the tip won't have light because I don't think it extends far enough to the other side. I mean, you can put light if you want, but that just means your cone is more foreshortened, so it's like a longer cone. So it depends on how long of a cone you want to draw. So yeah, that's why I can't answer the shading problems. Like, oh, how do you shade consistently? Well, just have consistent perspective and ray trace, and you will shade consistently throughout your entire painting. Any other questions? But yeah, sometimes I just do practices like this for fun. Like you just draw shapes intersecting or colliding or next to each other. No, I didn't put any ambient occlusion on this. I don't really care what I call it, but if I wanted more consistency between the lighting, then I would, this would be darker, and there's a limit to how much you can guess lighting wise. Like I can guess that there's bounce light over here, right? And I can guess that there's bounce light over here and here, but eventually you run into a point where your guesses are not, like, you don't know how to check whether or not they're consistent because you're not a rendering engine. So it's diminishing return after a certain point. Like how many light bounces can you really accurately guess? And like how accurately can you draw the form? So the more accurately you want to guess, the more accurately you have to draw the geometry. So if your geometry is off, like here, right here, then it will be off. So like, yeah, there's gonna be, you can keep digging, like there's gonna be ambient occlusion here because it's like a very acute angle. Bounce light over here, and then maybe a little bit bounce light over from this side, right, on the tube. And yeah, you can work this forever. I'm not going to, but ambient occlusion here, and you can just keep making it more and more realistic. Cast shadow, like you can really nail down the cast shadow shapes, and then have terminators. Like let's do terminators. So, and then fine tune the light receiving edge. Figure out where the bounce light would exist and where it won't, based on the angle of the smaller tube. Maybe like blurring of the shadows. Depends on how far the shadows have attenuated. Depending on the surface material, you can say, oh, there's reflective light on the tangent surface to the environmental light. And then more ambient occlusion. Ambient occlusion here, terminator here. I didn't draw much when I was in school. And then we can start playing with lost edges because it's now we're going to reflective light in the bounce setting, and then we can color in or shade in the environmental values to get a bit more consistent application of shadows and edges, so that we don't have to rely on lines anymore. I don't really like relying on lines to begin with, so now now this edge would be a bit more realistic, I guess. Take that out too. And Terminator here. I think we need a... And at this point, the contour lines don't help anymore, because I've already knocked out the shape. I mean, they help a little bit, but it doesn't matter as much. And then this edge wouldn't even exist much. I mean, you can tell there's going to be a value separation between the two, because this one's going to receive more light. So we can put more values just to differentiate the finer details of the differences in form. Like, so the bounce light would run along the edge of where the I forgot how to call it. Like if the light is bouncing directly towards the viewer based on the angle of the surface, then you can predict where to put the highlights and where to put maybe the contour shadows. That one's kind of tricky, but a little bit of ambient here. Terminator here. Lost edges here. Like it will kind of blend in with the background, but to make it brighter to show the edge still. I am just talking to myself now. I talk to myself quite a bit when I draw, so that I can reason with myself and check if my knowledge is correct. This is why I don't have friends, so careful how much perspective you learn. I'm not 100% sure about the cast shadow here. I think it should be a little lower here. It'll catch here, but then it will actually be exposed a little bit down here. Now we're getting like kind of nitpicky in the details, but it is still fun. So when it's darker like this, bounce lights would actually be a bit more apparent in some areas. It's like that's the only thing that's really defining the form. Now the contour lines just annoying. Like they take away from the forms. That's why I don't like lines. Like lines don't really exist and they're just distracting. Okay, let's do Terminator here to make it a little clearer on form. I think it's gonna have to be up here. Nah. So I guess for stuff like this I might sketch it out, but the chances are I'm just gonna block in values instead, because then I don't have to deal with like erasing these lines, which is just really annoying. But yeah, I haven't done this in a while. So this shape is kind of inaccurate here. Perspective-wise, I think the bounce light would be stronger on the bottom here because it's so close to this bright surface. And then okay, it's a little closer. Anyway. Now it's a bit more realistic. See, whatever shape I can picture in my head, because perspective is so, like, the rules are so easy. Like, it's a very simple set of rules, but it's hard. The hard part is to stay consistent with the rules. Like, you have to consider a lot of things, like, so the details in these contour lines are pretty important. So these contour lines over here, like this one. The reason why I put them in is to clarify the rotation of the cross section as the pipe wraps around the bigger pipe. What I mean by that is there's a pretty important distinction that this one is curved this way. This one's curved this way, but this one's curved down because this is the middle, like where we're looking at the cross section directly horizontally. Same with this one, down, and then this is up, and this is up. But this is down here already on the second joint and up here because the flat cross section is actually here, here, and maybe around here. The reason is because this is already rotating away from us. So this tube at this section is in maybe that orientation, whereas this tube, this right here, is still kind of like flatter, and then this one right here is facing the other direction. So it's like this. That's why the center is a little bit lower. So this is the flat cross section for, or horizontal cross section for this tube, and then this one would be a little higher here, and then this one would be a little higher, maybe around here. And it makes sense because they're being gradually rotated overall to the left. So yeah, you can't really go on autopilot because every single line you put in a perspective matters. It's either wrong or it's right. There's no middle ground. So the problem is, or the question becomes, how right do you need it to be? And this information is important. Like, I don't, this is not accurate. Like, this curve is clearly not accurate. I could go in and be like, oh, I want to make this circle perfect. I want to make this perfect too. But that's not important. What's important here is that I know, like, I'm just doing these for information, for, like, to kind of educate me on which direction the pipe is pointing at different spots. And as long as I know, like, as I'm sketching, I know this one's curving this way, this one's curving this way, that gives me enough information to say the center is, or where it's facing horizontally is right here. And that's more important than, you know, getting this perfectly right. Like, I'm not going to break out the circle tool to get this in. The problem is, can I get this accurate so that I can shade with the correct information? So yeah, it's not that I can't get this right. Like, this is obviously wrong. So if you were to zoom into this and say, oh, does this guy know perspectives? As some people might say no, because he can't even draw a circle right. But you can't draw everything perfectly correctly unless you're like AutoCAD. So as long as I'm using these notes to shade correctly, and I know how to get it correct, I just choose not to because it's not useful, then you're pretty much good on perspectives. You don't need to, you don't need to be pixel perfect. And that's why I don't like lines. Yeah, any other questions? Oh, give me a second. I'll be right back real quick. I usually use 8,000 by 8,000 pixels for painting. Actually, for pretty much everything. I can solidly draw from imagination for a lot of things. But there's also a lot of things I don't know. I can't draw from imagination because I don't know the shape or the function or like the design of it. So it's more of a knowledge-based issue. So let's say I'm pretty familiar with the mechanics of a table saw. So if you tell me to paint a table saw, I can draw all the bolts and nuts needed to construct a table saw. And it would be this method where I put things together, right? Like on canvas. But I can put all the details I need and all the tools I want on a table saw. Pretty accurately, so it'll have all the details of a real table saw or more because I know what I want on the table saw. So yeah, I can draw a miter saw, table saw from scratch because I know those things very well. Or like a bike, like not a motorcycle, bicycle. Yeah, I think most people can have what it takes to be a illustrator as long as you have like the work ethic for it, and obviously you have to like doing it. If you don't like doing it, I don't think you can draw for 8 hours a day. So it's a kind of a familiarity issue. Like if I draw enough motorcycles, I could probably paint a motorcycle from scratch. Now, if I take apart my motorcycle and build it back together, I can probably more easily draw the motorcycle. Like if I know all the parts that go into it, all the functions, all how it connects together, why each bolt exists to hold something together in a certain way, then it will be easier for me to... Like you're basically internalizing how the design was done. So the only thing that's left is shading, but shading is a very simple set of rules of geometry, so you can do that. Recall things from imagination. So the harder parts are like non-functional things. So for example, someone's face. If you wanted to draw someone's likeness from imagination, that's really, really difficult. Drawing anatomy from imagination is not too bad, because there's only so many big muscle groups that you need to hit. So once you study it enough, yeah, like if you want to render the details of someone flexing and they have like a feathering on the muscle strands, like striations, then you probably need to reference, but otherwise you don't really have to. So yeah, I I think I think that's about it. Unless you guys have anything else. This is why I don't make tutorials on perspectives, because it takes, like, the rules are simple, but it takes a long time to demonstrate the rules. Yeah, I think about composition, like how to lead eyes and what to render, where to render. But the how to put this? There's like composition is kind of a complex topic because it relates to every other fundamentals like colors, values, and whatnot, shapes, perspectives, and framing, subject. Like, I guess composition can also be like how you want to depict the subject. So it's like a very loose definition. I don't talk about it much because I'm still trying to learn how to do it, like how to compose. It's like, yeah. Any other questions before I just nuke the stream, shut down the stream? Oh, Pezzy. I don't know, because I find drawing fun by itself. So it's not like I need to do something else to make it fun. Like like I don't do anything else to hype myself up for drawing. Drawing is the hype. Like sometimes I make tea before I draw because I like drinking tea, but that whether or not I have tea doesn't affect whether or not I draw. So if you have, like, the only problem I run into is if I have time or not. So if I have time, then I draw. So I mean, you do get instant feedback for drawing as well. Like every stroke you put down is kind of instant feedback. No, not really. I don't care too much about drawing my own dreams because my dreams are usually pretty scary. Like I like scary dreams, but I don't want to draw them. Yeah, I wouldn't know because I don't do music. So Monet, I like Impressionism the most. Like the idea of Impressionism is great because uh I don't care about the details as much in a painting versus how the drawing looks overall. So yeah, you can have details, but the there's lack of better words. The impression of detail is more important sometimes, most of the time, than actually having details. Big pictures is better, but impressionism isn't just about big pictures. So you can have texture that has a certain effect when you look at a certain distance. So like grass blades might look very different from 2 feet away versus if you look at Monet's drawings up close, or like impressionistic paintings up close. I can kind of show that. So I'm sure some of you have looked at this painting. Oh, where is it? Let's do 9-7. 9-7. So obviously it looks like flowers, but if you just like zoom in a bit, like it looks different. But then like if you zoom in a lot, then it doesn't look like much of anything at all. So this is more of an impressionistic approach. I'm not rendering all the flowers out, but they look like flowers and grass because of the shape pattern, the way that the shapes go together. Not necessarily the big picture is better or whatnot, but sometimes the picture only works at a certain density. So this works here because you can see a bit of perspective, and now you can place these shapes in 3D inside your head, and that would mean something versus like, oh, if you just zoomed all the way in and there's no information on perspective or anything, like this just looks like a bunch of colors, but it doesn't look much different from if I zoom out from here. So yeah, I work zoomed out most of the time, like maybe this far, like half the time, and then I will zoom in this much, like 30% of the time, and then the other 10% actually is going to be diving all the way into the details. Like I would go in and render these things out, or yeah, it's not a lot of rendering, but it's like I need to be exact where I put these lines, so on certain things, but if I don't need to, I'll just stay zoomed out. I have been asked to do clean line arts, and that's why I don't do commissions anymore. But most of the previous commissions I had was painting as well, but I don't like commissions because at some level they're gonna have some control over your work, whether you like it or not. Like they have to have some input. They're paying you money, so it makes sense, but I don't like that as much. What am I thinking about? So I'm thinking about whether or not the picture looks good. Like, is it describing the object that I want, the subject that I want? Does it have a color scheme or like contrast scheme that I want? Does it look good? But then if I think about does it look good, then I think about why does it look like shit? And you start breaking down like, oh, it looks like shit because maybe, you know, maybe this part of the picture looks like shit. And then you ask like, oh, why does it look like shit? And then you try to fix it. Like, does it look like shit because the contrast is off? Does it make sense for the contrast to be off? Blah blah blah. So lots of talking to myself. Yeah, I mean, even if they contract you or like commission you for a specific style, almost no commissioner is gonna be like, yeah, just, you know, here's $500, go draw whatever you want. No, they're gonna be like, oh, draw my character, here's the color scheme, here's the hairstyle, but draw it in your style. But you know, at that point you already have some input, but then you have to back and forth like, oh, her hair is not like this, it's like this, or I want her to pose like this, but what if personally, stylistically, or compositionally, I don't like posing like that? Then now you have more and more inputs as the discussion continues. Like, oh, I think the grass should be greener here, or I think the flower should be redder here instead of purple because I like purple, or more, I like red instead of purple. So no, I have not used Procreate. All right, I'm actually gonna go eat dinner soon, so I'll shut off the stream. But I'll be on the Discord, and I think the invite link is in the description. But I'll be on Discord if you guys have any questions. You can ping me or wherever else. And yeah, thanks for joining. And I guess if I'll stream whenever I feel like, but I might stream again for studies on Discord later because I might actually do a study. Yeah, thanks for joining.